welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to a news video today. The big headline of the news coming from today is that Everton have offered BETO to Torino, who are currently going through an injury crisis. Everton would want a loan with an obligation to buy. This comes from Tutto Sport. BETO's a bit of an interesting one because I believe there is some positive qualities to BETO, and I believe with the negative form of Dominic Calvert-Lewin as of recently, I do think there's a lot of Everton fans, myself included, who have kind of clamoured for him maybe to be given a chance and maybe to start with the late goal at Fulham and his overall more positive performances than Calvert-Lewin, in the sense of looking much more likely to score than Calvert-Lewin, who is going through a really bad dry patch of goals this season when it comes, besides like the Bournemouth game being one of the only times I can think of where he's actually scored a goal. So I think it's one where it's an interesting one. I can see the argument for wanting Beto to leave because ability-wise he's not very good. He's a workhorse striker, similar to those like Umanias who we've had in the past. And you can understand why Everton fans don't want something like that back at the club, and why we think we should be going for better. But with the league position we're in right now, and I guess a lot of it as well depends on Armando Broja, how good he ends up being for us. If Calvert-Lewin can improve in form. Again, we are still talking in basically 2 months in the future right now, so it's one of those things where we are going to have to see how things develop. But I wouldn't be surprised if this is something we should be keeping an eye on, because it wouldn't surprise me that if the form picks up for Calvert-Lewin, or if Armando Broja is able to hit the road running, then Beto will be one of the first people shipped off. Of course, still Chimiti to return to. The next bit of news comes from Paddy Boyland, and that is that there has been significant interest from France in taking Jack O'Brien on loan this January. However, the current plan is for him to stay at Everton and continue developing. O'Brien's an interesting one because under this absolute cesspit of crap that we've had under Dyche this season, and I know there's been a few decent results. There was a good streak of going on without a defeat, but how bad the performances were, I think we're very lucky to come out with some of those games with draws, to be honest with you. I think it's one where you look at it and go, how come someone like O'Brien hasn't been given a chance? Of course, I do believe he has also just replaced Seamus Coleman in the Ireland squad, so we will have to see. It doesn't surprise me that there's interest in France. He was quite good at Lyon, of course, scoring in a cup final, I believe, against PSG. Some impressive performances as Lyon were able to push themselves up the league and end up finishing in a Europa League spot. So it does interest me that O'Brien hasn't been given a chance, especially with how bad Tarkowski's been. Keane's improved a little bit, but Tarkowski's been absolutely dreadful. And with Jared Brantwaite's injuries, you think maybe someone like O'Brien would be given a chance, but it doesn't look like that's the case. But we have been, of course, linked with other centre-backs, and that's where we will get on to next. But if we are looking at potentially signing more centre-backs, I don't understand why not giving O'Brien a loan wouldn't help, or else he's going to end up going down the path of someone like a Mason Holgate, where he's just never going to play, he's never going to develop, and then he's just going to be crap, to be honest with you. Even though Holgate's a weird one, because I think he was just, it's that one season where he played quite well that helped him. But what I mean is, you don't want him to be one of these third, fourth choice centre-backs who end up then stuck in a carousel where they never improve, and then everyone thinks they're crap because they never give it a chance to improve. But next bit of news is that Everton and Crystal Palace have been named as possible landing spots for Fiorentina defender Pietro Comuzzo, according to the Daily Mail. The 19-year-old centre-back recently signed a 4-year contract and is in line to make his Italy debut after being called up for their Nations League games this month. Comuzzo has been a big part in a resurgent Fiorentina side this season that has currently sat third in the Serie A, where he's made 10 starts. Ironically, the Fiorentina side being led by former Everton striker Moise Kean, who's been on fire in the Serie A this season. And yeah, Comuzzo's an interesting talent, young centre-back. I believe he was actually a midfielder in the academy, according to some of the stuff I've read. But yeah, to say he's only 6 foot, which isn't huge for a centre-back, he's shown some aerial dominance, ranking in the top 7% of all centre-backs across Europe's top 5 leagues for aerial duels. Aerial duels won with 3.5 per 90. And Fiorentina's 10 goals conceded is tied for actually the 3rd best in Serie A, with Empoli behind Juventus and Inter, I believe. Juventus and Napoli are the teams they are behind. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Do we need another centre-back? Not really, and I can imagine Fiorentina are going to want a deep 30, 35, 40 million for him, especially with him being a good young talent who clearly is improving them. You know, is clearly playing a big role in defensively. I do know, of course, David De Gea is a big reason for that as well. But yeah, It surprises me that we're being linked with centre-backs, especially since I can imagine there'd be a decent fee involved in signing Camuso, and I do think that money should be going to multiple other places before we even consider the signing of a centre-back, if I'm being completely honest. Staying in Italy, La Repubblica in Italy state that a former Tottenham managing director could potentially land a role at Everton. Dan and Ryan Friedkin are listening to the advice from a multiple of sources on various matters, and one of those is Fabio Patrici, the former Spurs and Juventus managing director. He's a much listened to voice, with the former Tottenham director of football acting as an external consultant. At this moment in time, he's only allowed reduced duties for now, as he's still serving a 30-month ban imposed on him by the FIGC and FIFA. He's been without an official role since then, but can work in a limited capacity until the ban ends in June 2025, which seems to link him with the Friedkins at Everton, who have been taking advice from the man dealing with the growing crisis at Roma. And according to Repubblica, there are those who already see him as the first management addition to Everton when the group's takeover is completed. So again, I've done a minor bit of research on Patrici. At Juventus, he was very successful, winning 19 trophies, including 9 consecutive Serie A titles. He was a decent part in Tottenham's improvement in his first season. He helped the team improve from 7th to 4th, and they also saw signings including Dejan Kulusevski, Rodrigo Bentancur, and Christian Romero, of course, all linked with his past at Juventus, who have arguably been three of Spurs' most crucial players, especially this season. Kulusevski has been one of the best players in the Premier League, arguably, and definitely Spurs' top player this season. And yeah, I think there was also signs like Mickey van der Ven, who's turned into one of the better centre-backs in the Premier League, but there was also signs like Brian Hill, who flattered to deceive. But there was also people like Pape Matar, who under Ange Postecoglou has really found himself a role as a really good player in the Premier League, even in comparisons to players like Moussa Dembele, who is a big cult hero at Spurs. And yeah, I think from what I've read a lot, even from his time with Juventus and his time at Tottenham, is that he's a great eye for players and was able to get deals done for Tottenham that they wouldn't have been able to probably do before. And this comes from a Juventus fan when Spurs brought him in originally. He has a good eye for talent. I don't think he has the strong connections with other clubs, so he's generally been weak at managing complex deals. If he's hired to be in charge of scouting and identifying up-and-coming players that are flying under the radar, he will do a good job. If he's put in charge to be the #1 guy when it comes to managing your transfer dealings, he's going to struggle there. Which is interesting, because again, he did some good players at Spurs, but I think there was also, for example, he was the Richarlison deal, and even though I love Richarlison, it is an abject failure for Spurs, if I'm being honest. But yeah, it's a weird one. So it seems like Patrici needs someone around him to make sure, or Paratici, sorry, needs someone around him to make sure, you know, there's not anything crazy going on, and that he does seem to work best at spotting players and signing players, young talented players, which is, I do think, something Everton need with this team. We're desperately crying out for something like that, or someone who can spot talent like that. But this would possibly also mean the removal of Kevin Felwell from his role. We will have to see how things go, but of course there is a possibility that this means Felwell could be leaving at the end of the season, but we will have to see, because of course these are just rumours. But that is all for this video. If you did enjoy, please make sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Everton Newsfeed, and follow me on Twitter at Callum 3. And I will see you all for the next video and or live stream that I am on.